the pale blue dot.
Well, this is the high quality setup, mate. We got the iPhone, we got the shitty quality camera on the computer.
It's pretty.
But I'm drinking a good coffee, so
thank God for that.
Yeah,
so got to have good coffee.
That's right. Yeah. Well, Steve, thanks so much for doing the podcast, mate.
No worries, Tom. Great to be on. Thanks for inviting me,
mate. It's great to be in the movie theatre.
Yeah,
I love it.
Well, I suppose one thing I do like about. I'm born and bred in Ballarat, and my wife, and so we spend all our life here. But one thing I do like, I do like the privacy of my own home.
Yes.
So I'm quite a public figure. It's interesting that, as soon as I step outside the gate, I'm free game. Yeah, it's 24/7. So it's actually nice to come and be able to have sort of a place where you close the gate and you can probably let your hair down a bit. If I had hair, I'd let it down, mate. Not
very
like
good.
you.
Yeah, very true.
So I actually quite like that, and it's an interesting, perspective for me. I'm a Ballarat person, lived here all my life, so there's an expectation that I'm kind of out and available. So wherever I'm out, it's not like I love it. I don't shy away, or I'm not. I don't get offended if people come up. Sometimes it can be difficult on my family, but it's also nice to have this environment where I love my music, so it's nice to be able to just put some headphones on and get into my own space a little bit, which is interesting. The conversations we've had about, because I probably sort of lead two lives a little bit in that, my public persona, and then obviously then I'm a dad, father, husband, and so that's slightly different, and you've got to kind of separate those a little bit. So it can be quite difficult. One of the hardest things, I don't think I've told this to anyone before, Tom, but often I would go away and I might be staying in, say, a village or a 5-star hotel and at some event, and you get looked after pretty well, so you go, you can imagine, you come down or you check in and, they'll say, here's your room, sir, and off you go, and everything's in the room, and then you come down and food's all laid on, you just leave your plates and you go. So I come home, it can be a real transition. My family hates me when I come home because I'm lazy, I'm rude, I'm arrogant, because that's kind of the life that you live. And, and even for me, when I travel, I'm not a great traveller, I reckon I'm a very good traveller. I'm so good, you don't want to sit near me or be beside me, because as soon as I go out the driveway, so if I'm off to some event, speaking gig or some board meeting on the Gold Coast, as soon as I get in the car to leave, no one wants to talk to me or travel with me. I basically just get in my own bubble, and I just, I drive, I have my music on or talk back, and down I go. I park it long term, I come over, I check in, I put my own bags in, I'm on the plane, I get the headphones on, I'm watching a movie or I'm listening to something, zone. And out I get sometimes don't even have bags, just carry on straight in, and into the gig. So I'm not a great person to travel with, because for me, it's a means to an end. I want to get to where I am, and then I'm on, so it's transition for me a lot of the time. So I often have to have my mind alert to what situation I'm in. So often, am I a public figure now, or am I allowed to fart in the bedroom?
Yes,
sort of
exactly.
That sort of lifestyle. So it's quite unusual, and I never expected. So you can't prepare for that. I grew up, we're here in Ballarat at my hometown, and I grew up on the other side of Lake Wendouree. Mum and Dad still live in the same house. I was a pretty sort of normal kid who grew up expecting that I was a maths science guy, did engineering and teaching. So I could never have imagined that I would, and I was quite a shy, introverted, hard-working kid, but to then now have had this lifestyle that's completely different to that.
Because you got a civil engineering degree, don't you?
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, it's really fascinating. It's an interesting dichotomy, because you have this persona that's not necessarily an extroverted persona, but you just do live that public lifestyle. It almost seems, very much needed that you would be able to switch off, because when if you can't switch off, you get into that state in the wrong environment. Like if you're coming back after having travelled and done all these sort of public talks and all that sort of stuff, the inability for you to switch off would probably reduce your mental health, or you'd need to almost have a space where you can just call your own and, like as you say, fart in the bed.
Yeah, well, we're normal people, but sometimes we live a different existence, and often, I kind of think about rock stars who are getting feted wherever they go, and you can see why their lifestyle, it almost overcomes them. So you
Absolutely.
really do need to have, I think, and more so now, even just with what we're talking about with life now, you live life often through social media, and so much of, like I used to say, I say I'm a public figure, but a public figure when I was growing up and running in the 80s and 90s was, I go out and I see someone at a cafe. A public figure now is social media. So you don't have to be the physical person. You're on this medium, which
it's very strange.
Worse. Yeah, no, you can never let it go. I remember, even the fact we've got a remote control gate, and people find that a bit weird because they,
so
hey,
different.
are we blocking you out, or why? Do I choose to let them in? And I remember also, I worked as an engineer and a teacher, but then I became sort of a full-time athlete, and I started managing myself. I remember getting an answering machine, and I was one of the first people in Ballarat to have an answering machine, and people they would hang up, so no one would ever. They'd kind of, or some people would think they were talking to me, and they go, I rang you the other day, and you're really rude, on the phone. I said, no, that was my answering machine message. That wasn't really me. Yeah. So so that sort of change, and now it's none of that. I thought I was advanced in technology, but now it's so all-consuming, and people expect, people don't ring we don't talk as much face to face. We certainly, even phone calls, but people expect instantaneous results. So if someone sends, I remember I used to get emails, and I'd get them on a Friday night, and I'd answer them on Monday because it was the weekend. But now you get them on a Friday. I get emails at 3 o'clock in the morning, and people are wondering why I haven't responded. Well, I'm thinking I'm asleep.
That's right.
So that I find that, coming back to what we were talking about, it's more important now to be able to have what's the release valve. Where are you? Be aware of your circumstance and how you treat people in those circumstances. So, whilst we're not financially rich. I'm not, I'm not intelligent, but I like to think that I have good ability to read people and and be a good person, and hopefully be valued in conversations and in the relationships that I have. But you have to work hard to do that. You
do. And I think also as well, it's one measure of intelligence. There are many different ways to skin a cat. There are many different ways to measure intelligence. And, you were saying you may not have that sort of credited intelligence. It's like, oh, look at all my degrees, despite the fact that you have a degree. But there is a lot to say in someone who is able to practically apply, even just in this day and age with so many people that are unhappy and so many people that are, mental health is really dwindling. But that ability to say, I have these tools that really allow me to live a very happy life in the way that you would define success is intelligence within itself, because you've actually figured it yourself out, which I think is really important and something that a lot of people need to spend time to do,
Yeah, and I do. I spend a lot of my time just chatting, having coffee with people, and I'm finding myself more so now, and I don't know why, because I'm not a mentoring leader, confident sort of person, but I tend to be dispensing advice a lot of the time, and I don't want to, but I find myself apologising for lecturing to people a lot.
Right.
People will just catch up for a coffee, and suddenly before I know it, I'm starting to give them advice, which is not, and it's not, I don't hold them to it. Obviously, it's not paid advice, so it's really just me. Hopefully, I'm not sure how it's kind of where it's got to or how that's happened, but and you hope that you're making a positive impact on and if I always think that it's a price of a coffee. If they don't take the advice on, well, that's fine. But you think that it may be in some minor way, you're having an effect and you're showing interest in people. I think I think that's probably a thing that's missing a little bit is, I'm interested in what people are doing. Because a lot of times people are sort of feeling like they have to impress and show off, and so I find it bizarre sometimes, and obviously I'm not sure if the people will take this the right way, but some people will want to catch up with me and meet me, and when they do, the first 2 minutes is, wow, loved you, watch you, you're an idol, I've, followed you all my life, loved your career, and then for the next 28 minutes of the half an hour, they then tell me about themselves.
Oh, right.
As if because they
it's like
want
a counselling session almost.
Well, they want to get reinforcement. They want to leave, and they probably want to say, "Oh, gee, I reckon Steve Moneghetti thinks I'm a great guy because I told him that I was in half an hour."
Yes.
And I think, well, here was an opportunity. You said you admired what I've done. Well, what was it that you admired about? Why didn't you ask me some questions? And we go through the journey on how I was as successful as what I was at my running and what I've done. So it's an opportunity for the sharing of information, whereas often it's just one way information. So, and again, I'm a really good talker, not a great writer like yourself, Tom. But,
yes.
But I tend to have to sometimes just pull myself up and say, hang on, communication is just as much about listening as it is about talking. And how often now, and my wife Tanya and I have this conversation a lot, where I'm finding with people now, we cut each other off all the time. So you can't. I've got to really try hard, because I want to jump in and tell you, Tom, how good I am. My bit of advice is much better than what you're telling me. So I'm going to cut you off now, and I'm going to. And then you go, no, mine's. And it's like a table tennis competition where we're hitting back and forth, and it's a competition to see who can dispense the best bit of advice. And you can't come away from the coffee going, not only did I not have to pay for my coffee, but shit, I won that competition. I gave more advice to them than they gave to me.
That's right, yeah. I beat that marathon runner in this podcast.
So, I think, I'm not sure why we've come to that, whether that's a good thing. It's just kind of what I'm noticing in the way we're leading our lives. It might be maybe that so much of society now is kind of a bit take, so it's not that we don't have the feature stories anymore. They're all the headline. So maybe I can't have a half-hour conversation with you, because if we were to get too deep, then we wouldn't have sort of covered a lot of ground, and I wouldn't have been able to, I'm so busy, I've got to get off. And I'm not actually that busy, but everyone thinks, it's a standard answer. How you going, Tom? Oh, geez, mate, I'm busy.
Mate, I'm
busy. I'm really busy, mate.
Yeah, well, I'm smashed. I've got a heap on.
Well, why are you busy? And sometimes I haven't had much on this week. I was interstate last week doing a few things with sport, but this week I haven't been too bad. And if people go, how are you going? Actually, I'm going well this week. I haven't had to go to Melbourne. Well, it's been really good. Yeah. And then they kind of look at you as if to go, oh, really? Well, what's wrong with you? So there's this false. Well, you need to be busy, but totally. The next line on, well, if you are really busy, Tom, is it a good busy or a bad busy? And you kind of go, actually, it's a really bad busy. I'm just bloody beside myself. I haven't been able to relax. I haven't been able to do this. Thinking, well, that's not busy for a good reason. Yes. Now you need to. I'm not going to tell you, but you need to chill. Exactly. You need to relax a bit and get back in control of your life. So there's kind of this. I think people say they're really busy, but is that a cry for help, or is it just a defense mechanism to say, I'm really important because I'm busy?
Exactly. Look, I actually unpacked this because I was really interested in that word, because it's a negative connotation of what the positive is actually I'm being quite productive. Now, if people were thinking, I'm really busy in a good way, I'm really careful when I use that word, because this societal implication is, number one, when Steve asked Tom, how you going? And I say I'm really busy, the implication there is I don't actually have enough time for you because I'm so busy, which is not cool. Right. But it's also like exactly what you said. It's like a mark of heroism. It's like, it's good to be busy. It's good to have a lot on, But I very much agree with you. I wonder if people are busy, or if they just feel like they're busy because their head is just going crazy with thought, and they actually haven't spent enough time with them to realize, I'm actually not doing anything. I'm just lost in this mythical landscape of these internal demons saying things at me all the time, And also, why
are you busy? This is the thing that I often fight with, is, am I busy pleasing other people, or am I busy doing things I want to do, or am I, just saying I'm busy and I'm not actually saying,
because I'm insecure.
So I think that I'm busy a lot spending time with other people,
right?
Because that's who I am, which can sometimes compromise my family life. That there's no doubt about that. But that's kind of the price you pay, and they understand that. My family, they'd probably be sick of me if I wasn't busy to some degree. So it's a balance between, being here for them, and I think it's not being busy. Your word's a great one. I used to say being efficient, but productive is a much better word, Tom. So it's being productive. No one needs to be busy. Everyone needs to be productive. And if you're productive, you're probably not going. You're not using the word busy.
No,
you're doing stuff, but you're doing it, and it's a bit like I don't want to say. Imagine you say I'm really busy because I'm a 5-hour marathon runner, so I need to train 25 hours a week. And I go, well, actually, Tom, that's interesting. I'm a 2-hour marathon runner.
Yeah.
I only need to do 10 hours a week. So why don't you get better?
That's
if you get
so
better,
true.
you're going to save 15 hours a week.
That's so true. But that you know what? That is the hidden, uncomfortable truth behind people that are busy. Is that it actually means that they're disorganized.
To some degree.
To some degree, because if you're busy all the time, it's like, well, you've got too much on. Busy is the idea that you've got too much on. You don't know how to handle it. And sometimes life just throws us those sorts of curveballs where it's like, oh wow, it's not necessarily my fault here, but today is going to be a very disorganized day where I don't know how I'm going to manage it. But if it's a chronic state, it's like maybe you need to cut some stuff out. And I really find that productivity, when you're really in that productive state, exactly like what you said before, you don't feel busy at all. I feel the most productive. It's one of the reasons why I'm doing a podcast is to actually get time to actually speak to people like yourself, which is brilliant. I just listen and we just have a great conversation. That's productivity for me. It's also just reading a book that I find really interesting, and I look back on an hour or so and I'm like, I didn't feel busy. I just felt like I got a lot done. Just by sitting, drinking one of Steve Moneghetti's finest, which is like an objectively good coffee, I might say, mate.
Thank you. No, we love our coffee. And it's interesting because then maybe, we should become busy consultants or something, because I think if you then, you need to delve into that. Why are people saying they're busy? Are they busy for the wrong reasons? Do they need to, get out of a few things? And, sometimes, we're in the position that, I'm busy by choice. I don't have a 9-to-5 job. So if I say, actually, I can get off this committee, or I can say no to these people. Some people may not have that choice. So if they're in a work situation, or their family life, they might be separated, so they're only seeing the kids a week. So there are some things that are out of their control.
Definitely.
But I always like to use the marathon analogy. The marathon, when the gun goes, you have to be on. Because you're in the present moment. Because you can't be... I have to look where the curb, you're subconsciously, you're jumping up the curb, you're taking turns. You have to be very much in the moment in a marathon. Now, if you've got all this other stuff happening, so, I like to use the analogy, your pet's at the vet and it's life or death, it might be dying. So imagine you're running along and in your mind you're thinking, gee, I wonder how Junior's going. God, I wonder what's, I wish you can't be thinking like that, because in a marathon that will be such a distraction that you could fall over, miss your drinks, put yourself in physical, could be badly dehydrated. You could actually, it's life-changing in that. So what I tell people is what you got to do is you got to get rid of all of that excess stuff and all the stuff, the controllables, control those, because in a marathon there are uncontrollables and you need to be on to give 100% to focus on the uncontrollables. Because if you dilute dilute everything, so there's controllables, there's uncontrollables, there's no way that you can get over all of those. So you've got to narrow it down. So I always think, do the, the night before, I pin my number on my single, I'd have it all laid out. So all of those things that you can do beforehand. So it's almost like, and I think sometimes that's not a bad analogy in people saying they're busy. Well, you're really busy, but you're watching the 15th series of Game of Thrones last night. Well, you should have been doing that. Then you're busy now.
Exactly.
But you should have, if you had been prepared or aware, you might have, you might have sent a message to someone saying, look, I'm not going to be able to fit that in tomorrow. So I think a lot of the busyness is the busyness in the moment now, or, because you haven't thought about it and haven't prepared. And to some degree, I actually think that everybody should have almost, like we spoke about, I think we've had this conversation about the 20 minutes to get out of, 20. I kind of think everyone should have a sort of an hour at the start of the day to just mentally prepare for the day, and then an hour at the end of the day to sort of have a debrief. And then I reckon we'd be more efficient during the day. But it's kind of like you're wasting 2 hours of your day, but I think you would find that you'd be more productive if you did that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, absolutely, and it's saving time as well. I mean, lots of these, people that really seem to have their life in order to do that. They have that time in the morning and time in the evening. Sometimes that time in the evening is to reflect, but it's also to prepare for the next day, which is fantastic. It's like this, you kind of build in this flow state. I just wonder how much, because from our last podcast,
what do you call that? Flow state.
Flow state. It was actually
the
flow state is basically the idea where the quote that I got from the book was time adapts to your experience. People often, flow state is this chart that's been graphed, which essentially the y-axis is anxiety, so it's very stressful, and the x-axis is boredom. So if you have this perfectly linear line between solving a problem, like working on a challenge that's challenging, but you're actually progressing at the same time, you feel like, and I mean, to use the analogy of the marathon runner or the marathon, there's nothing that's probably more adaptable to flow than running a long run, because it's challenging, yes, but you're getting closer to the finish line.
Right.
And you see that with any sort of hobby or thing that people are interested in. You take a podcast, for example, right? You can look at the numbers that are slowly increasing. It's like, yes, it's challenging because you've got to email people, and it's like entrepreneurship as well. You see the way the businesses grow and anything in life. And they say there was the psychologist who came up with the idea of flow state was Polish or Czechoslovakian. His name was Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. It's a great name. But he came up with the idea is that people really feel like life, they're just living life to the fullest. We're in this position where of flow, essentially. People getting running
between anxiety and boredom.
Yeah, where it's a challenge, but it's a challenge that's actually seeing you grow.
Yeah, an achievable, not an overwhelming challenge.
Exactly,
but a challenge that you can deal with.
Exactly, and we actually have a lot more control to find flow than we think we do. So many things in life we can actually. I mean, just even like learning a new skill. Like, I just started jiu-jitsu like 2 months ago. I was getting beaten up for like the first month.
I've seen all the bruises.
Yeah, that's right. But you get your first submission, and you're like, oh wow, like this is actually starting to get me somewhere. And anything like learning guitar, like learning how to talk, learning how to ask questions, any sort of life skill can be applied to that idea of flow. And I was going to ask, because when you started marathon, you weren't necessarily the best, were you? I think we said that from our last podcast.
Yeah, not really.
You didn't start off.
No, I never. It's an interesting. I use. I'm not sure if I kind of get the message across very well, but I tell people, I wasn't when I started running. We're just running shorter stuff at school, 1500 and then 3K. And I wasn't the best runner at the school, and that's fact. I can show you. You can look up the results, and that will be vindicated. But what happened as the distances got longer, I found myself further up towards the front, which is an interesting theory, because I didn't improve and beat you, Tom.
Yeah.
Just that because we ran a longer distance, I finished ahead of you. So I don't ever think, for some reason, I'm not combative with you. So I didn't actually go, oh yeah, what happened was, I'm not on some TV show going, oh, when we were at school, Tom Ahern was a much better runner than me, but I went out and I trained a lot harder, and eventually, I got closer to him in one run, and then the next run, and I remember the day specifically that I went round Tom, and from that day on, he's never beaten me since.
Yes.
I've never had that.
No.
And I don't need that. So for me, it's interesting that I just, as the distances got longer, for me, the challenge was it wasn't a big deal for me, so I coped with that quite well. So I never felt like I was running against you, and I never went home to my parents and go, gee, it was great today. I went from bronze to gold medal. What I did was I tried harder, or I'd put in, and eventually just over longer distance. It was kind of like it was me challenged by myself. And if you make the event longer, that was more of a challenge for me. It was like a bit of a battle, and you know, I'd almost come home and I'd go, yeah, I won that challenge today.
Yeah.
And it had nothing to do with the
Brilliant.
opposition or the competition.
Yep.
So then when I progressed and went to things like Commonwealth Games and Olympics, that was all exciting. I love getting the tracksuit, love representing Australia. There's no more proud person representing their country than me. But it wasn't a race again. I didn't ever feel compelled. You know, I wanted to win and get medals and gold medal. Everyone wants to win an Olympic gold medal, and I never. And it's not just because I didn't, because even in the races that I did win, I just felt it was me more challenging myself. And if I happened to get to the end of the event, you know, everyone said, "Gee, you're unbelievably tough in the race," and I remember with this bit. I don't ever remember doing that. And then we get to the end of the race, and they go, "You're the nicest bloke ever." You know, after the race, you know, you'd come up and you'd ask me how I went, and I said, well, of course I would, because I wasn't actually racing against you.
Yes.
I was just challenging myself.
Yes.
And I can talk to you about whether I won the challenge with myself or not. But at the end of the day, you know, I just want to talk to you about how your race went. So, you know, it's a sharing of that experience. And people go, "You're a great sport." Well, no, I'm not. There shouldn't be anything as a bad sport, because all you can only challenge yourself. And, you know, I've won races where I don't think I challenged myself, and I've lost races where I've had an unbelievable experience. And people go, you know, I had an experience. You know, I finished third at the World Champions, probably my greatest run ever. And people say, "Were you disappointed you didn't win?" I said, "Are you kidding me? I had a great run. It was perfect. Couldn't run any better. It was two guys ahead of me that were better." Well, how can I control that?
Yes.
What should I do? I go to bed that night going, "God, I wish a car had ran out the road and hit those two." Or, I mean, what do I think? How could I live with myself thinking I was badly treated today because two people beat me? Well, someone's got to win, and so I won lots of races too. And you just, you know, I don't know. I can't work out how. I mean, we live and breathe off. Society likes winners and losers, and they like it to be black and white. Life is not black and white, Tom. There are so many. I mean, we could analyse. We could be here for days talking about individuals are individuals because we're all different. There's so much that we can learn about ourselves. You know, you talk about your inner strength and your mind, and so many people get caught up in all of the other bullshit in life. You know, impressing things they can't control about. You know, cars, houses. You know, telling everyone they're busy. You know, these sorts of things, and yet so much they're wasting so much time on all of the false stuff, and they're not really having a genuine experience in life. And you know, maybe I'm just getting old, but I get, you know, more of my conversations now about not the good old days, but gee, why aren't people doing this? Why are they relying on this? And people are letting me down. You know, we talk about running groups now, and I've got a few runners that, you know, I don't coach any runners here, but I train with them all. And because we've all got mobile phones and social contacts now, they'll change times. So normally what would happen, I'd see you tonight, Tom, and I'd go, and this morning's a very good example. It's absolutely bitter weather here. It's basically sleeting, snowing. Yeah. And we went to park run this morning. I volunteered at park run, and, you know, there wasn't many people there. But what would have happened in the good old days, Tom, would have been, I would have ran with you last night and I would have said, right, I'll see you at Vic Park tomorrow morning at 8.
I've got to be there.
And I'd know you'd be there.
Yep.
And if I wake up and it's pouring rain, I go, geez, bloody going to be tough. But anyway, Tom will be there, so we'll bloody share the toughness together. It'll be terrible. But now, what happens, you know, I get up in the morning and I'm about to drive up there, I get 5 messages from people saying, actually, I'm going to wait till later, or I had a bad night, so I got up earlier. And I think, well, no, just be there at 8. What's wrong with just being... Why can't people just be there at 8?
Yeah.
So why, you know, so suddenly now people have the option and the choices. And I don't know whether it's FOMO, do they think they're missing out? So, who's controlling their lives? Why can't you just be there at 8? I just can't work that out. So are they selfish? Are they... And I'm not ripping into... This is not just my running group. This is symptomatic of life in general.
Yep.
You know, you put on a party now or something, and people don't respond. And then comes to the, you know, you've sent them text messages saying, are you coming? Can you RSVP? I need to know. Catering, you know, people come and they go, oh yeah, look, sorry, I've been really busy, you know, but anyway, I know it's the day before, but I'm not coming.
Yes,
you
exactly.
Know, I'm thinking, come on, we've got to be better than that.
Yeah.
So that, I'm not sure, it sounds like I am getting old, talking about the olden days and all that sort of stuff, but people don't seem to be as reliable. They're not as I can't think of the word, but they're just not. They don't take responsibility quite as well as what we used to. I don't think.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a brilliant point, and I think that the way we live. I mean, look, there's always up. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Shakespeare said it right. There's always going to be ups and downs in every time, but that ability to communicate without without actually physically being there is actually enabling indecisiveness, because it means that I can actually tell you based on the way I'm feeling right now, as opposed to having to stick to something that I said when I was in a different side of physiological state. Like, it's a really good point. Like, we could have gone for a run last night and we've just got this incredible dopamine, serotonin rush at the end of it. And we're like, oh, feeling great. Like, man, you're keen to train tomorrow morning?
Yeah.
Sounds brilliant. Woohoo. Let's do it. We'll lock it in, Without the phone, you wake up the next morning, you're cozy in your pillow, you got your partner next to you, and you're like, oh, I just can't be fucked, But you couldn't do that back then. But now you can. Yeah. And it's like the different mental and physiological state that we were in, because we're different people, based on different experiences. Like, after a coffee, I'm slightly more stimulated. After a sleep, I'm probably a little bit more dopey. But that ability to be indecisive and not stick to who we were when we said something is actually creating a lot of like kind of wobbling between being able to do something and being not able to do something, because so much of success in life is predicated on actually following through, walking the path, as opposed to just talking,
So is it options and choices? Do we have too many options and choices now? And, life was a lot simpler then. So probably the options were you either you meet me for a run or you don't. Whereas now you've got options to send me a message, not to, stay, go to bed, go beat out the night before. You've watched, I don't know, we've got so much information, like TV, computers, all those sorts of things. So maybe we see the world in a different perspective now. So our pecking order on importance for catching up with me tomorrow morning's probably in the mix a bit more.
Exactly.
Whereas it wasn't in past times. It probably was. Actually, I'm really happy to get a bit of stimulus from catching up with me at 8 o'clock. Whereas, like I say, you can get your stimulus from somewhere else probably now.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of my favourite books is Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. And his whole idea was everyone's happy all the time because they have a pill called Soma that just makes everything fine. They can do anything. They have pleasure everywhere. They can access whatever they want, instant gratification. And one of the lines from it was, in a world where everything is available, nothing has any meaning.
That's right.
And you can see that based on the idea. I mean, 10 years ago, Netflix, the idea of Netflix is just incredible. Like, I just pay, $9 a month and I get everything at the big... But how long does it take to choose a movie?
Yeah.
It's because, you've got so many options.
Yeah, exactly.
But, if you go out to, I don't know, you just go and live in the wilderness or whatever, the idea of watching the worst movie of all time sounds absolutely fantastic because you have no options.
That's right. Yeah.
So I think it's something largely... I mean, there's always more responsibility associated with greater opportunity and greater privilege, but you do have to take a look at yourself sometimes and think like, okay, have I... Because I think you need risk. You need to be disciplined, you need to have that ability to say, look, I mean, I could choose to watch Netflix again tonight for the third or fourth or fifth day in a row, or I could not watch it for a week or two and I just get to bed early and read or do something that's challenging, and then maybe after this 2-week, 3-week long stint, I'll be really excited just to watch anything, just to sit down, having that ability to
relativity. Because I sometimes think about, and I always like to try and use a practical analogy, and I think about a marathon, and I wonder if get the context right. So if you paid your $100 and you turned up at the start line and they said, actually, look, the weather's so bad, or we've had a few problems closing the roads, so what we're going to do is, don't tell anyone, but we're actually just going to give you the finisher's medal right now. You don't have to run it.
Yeah, right.
And would people be? I don't think people would be happy with it.
They hate it.
No. God, I've gone on a journey. I've trained, and that's what I love about the marathon is all the training gets you to a position that when you're on the start line and the gun goes, you are then getting a qualitative measure of where that training's put you.
Yes.
So you're born, we're probably, put you and me on 12 months out from a marathon.
Yep.
I've got more natural ability to run than you, so I'm probably a bit ahead.
Yeah.
And then we train and we go over, and you train really well, and you actually get to, we're probably about equal on the start line.
That's a lot of training, mate.
That's a lot of training, that may be.
Night and day.
But we get on the on the start line, and it's actually pretty interesting because we're now saying, hey, it's going to be interesting whether the 12 months of training you've done or my 56 years of natural ability and training, where's it get? So it's a bit of a game. So we want to actually go on the run to find out, to learn about how much we've developed as people. So it's kind of a bit of a test for what the work we've done, and I quite like that. Whereas if they just give you a medal, you never know. So we both get the medal, we're equal, call it a draw, and we wasted 12 months to some degree. So I kind of like so many people now think about the prize or the physical thing, but I like it's actually the work ethic and the journey that you go on. So it's what is that? It's all about the journey, not the outcome, that sort of stuff. And yet we're so fixated now on outcomes in life that we want the quick fix, but we've got to get back to just, you earn something, you earn the right. I'm an Olympian. Now it's not, as I say to people, it's not a raffle.
4-time, aren't you?
4-time, yeah. Well, we're not 4-time. See, that's interesting. So that's interesting you pick up that because we hate being called past Olympians, former Olympians, ex-Olympians, because once an Olympian, always an Olympian.
Beautiful.
And to some degree, we don't. So I've been to the Olympics 4 times. That's true, but I don't like being called a 4-time Olympian.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense. You've competed 4 times, but you're just an Olympian.
Yeah, once an Olympian, you're an Olympian.
Yes.
We're all equal.
Yes.
So I quite. There's another. There's a good example of a word that has so much power, and it tells you so much about a person. So, if you walked in and you said, oh, actually, we've got something in common, we're both Olympians, I would understand that you've not only been born with certain potential in a sporting discipline, but you've also worked really hard and gone on a journey, because they don't hand out Olympian unless you go through that process. So I instantly have a read on you as a person.
Oh, that's beautiful, man. Yeah.
And yet if they were handing out, if when you were born they handed out Olympic singlets, I wouldn't know that.
That's so true.
So you need to go on that path. So I think words are okay, but it's the drop down of what that word has involved to be able to have the letters after your name, or that recognition. And again, we don't get, I'm an AM. I feel embarrassed about being awarded, because there are so many people that are contributing so much to the community that we don't recognise, and they just feel good on the inside, and they know they're making a difference. And it'd be nice if we could somehow recognise that. We had an Olympian, one of our first 2 Olympians, pass away last week here in Ballarat, John Vernon, and just a gentleman of a man from that era in the 50s and 60s, that kind of era. But also he started, him and Bob Bath were the first Ballarat Olympians. So he started a tradition that I've been. So we're all on the continuum. How much on the continuum? I always think about people. If you're on the continuum and we miss you, is it like a time lapse? Is the world actually? So when did we just blip past you, Tom?
Yeah.
And actually, that blip didn't change the world's existence at all. So the continuum wasn't where. Or when we got to Tom, was there a sharp? It was like an earthquake because of the impact that you had. Now we all have that, and I don't want to get philosophical and say I'm no better than anybody else, but people, because I get out and I'm seen, so people think I'm contributing a lot more. But we all have the opportunity to contribute, and I'm just trying to make my blip, as big an earthquake and have an impact on a wide breadth of people. And I have the opportunity, and I feel honoured to do that. So and my family understands that. So if I get asked to do something for free, or you try and do it because it's a privilege to be asked, and then the privilege is being asked. Then the challenge is to make that opportunity worthwhile. So to get something out of it for myself, but also to pass on something, so that my domino effect has hit a lot of other people. So my earthquake is not just one line, me making it's spreading the earthquake, so it's 3-dimensional. It's not just 2-dimensional, and we all have the opportunity to do that. No one who's listening to this or watching this, they all think, oh no, he's superhuman. He's just saying stuff, and he doesn't actually. I actually mean that. We all have a capacity to make a difference to the community that we live in, but you got to choose to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's making the choices, and again, I think going sort of back to what we're talking about, I think people have so many choices now that they're reactive, and they feel like that's a sexy choice. So I'm going to react, and I'm going to take that choice. It's not taking the choice. It's actually making a decision so that the opportunity becomes your choice.
Yes.
There's a difference. So people are on the other end because they see all the world out there and they kind of go, I want to be like Richard Branson, I want to be like Ash Barty now. But they don't understand actually what happens is to do that, you've actually got to say, okay, I want to do an entrepreneur's course, or I want to buy a tennis racket when I'm 10 years old. Well, did you buy a tennis racket at 10 years old? No. Well, you're not going to be Ash Barty.
Yeah.
It is not possible. So you actually don't think of the choice at the end of the journey. Think of the choice that you're making now, because that will take you to that choice, that opportunity. So it's the opportunities, then it's the educated decision you make to allow that to be your choice to get the outcome that you want.
And you know what I think is a really good, almost perhaps hidden gem that you mentioned before about your life and how you've kind of actuated what you just said, is that when you were running because you wanted to run. There was an intrinsic value to you running, and it wasn't extrinsic. It was, I'm not going to run so that I can A, B, and C. It's, I'm going to run because I just enjoy doing it. And time again, you read these books about how to find yourself, how to, getting philosophical now, but how to find yourself, how to become who you are, how to contribute to the world by contributing to yourself and by staying in your lane. Larry Bird is a brilliant NBA player.
I know Larry. I don't know him, but I know.
Exactly. Yeah. And his whole thing was, I never cared whether or not I'd become an NBA player. I just loved shooting hoops for all hours of the day.
Yeah.
So it's like, how can people come to understand that the way they contribute to themselves, their own mental health, but the way they contribute to the universe as a whole is by doing things that they love to do, just because they love doing them. Because you're going to get better at it just by doing it all the time. Exactly. You're going to, if you love to write and you just, like that flow state again, you lose all sense of time, you're going to get pretty good at it. Yeah. And then you're going to probably have an opportunity to, something will come up and you're like, oh, I've written something about that. And someone goes, this is fucking brilliant. Yep. Or you just run all day. And because you love running so much, well, you've got to stretch and you've got to make sure your body's healthy. And, you're getting, the more you run, you're going to get pretty good, So I really,
It's true, because I often have people say, oh, yeah, but you were born to run. You were good at running. Yeah. Well, yeah, I am.
Exactly.
So what's wrong with that?
Because I love it.
Yeah, I love it. So why wouldn't you? That's good. And you're good at something. So why don't you love it and keep doing it? And we're all going to benefit from it. So people often use that, oh, yeah, but you were born, or, oh, yeah, but you're good at it. Well, yeah, and so
why wouldn't I do anything else?
Yeah, so what's bad about that?
Yeah. And I think it's probably got something to do with the fact that there are certain things at the moment in the world that we live in that seem to be cooler than others. Like, entrepreneurship is very cool. Like having a cool body, a nice body is cool. Like having that whole influencer kind of look seems to be quite cool. So exactly. So you have that.
Like having a beard and sort of
exactly.
Man bun
exactly.
And wearing a denim jacket, with
drinking a coffee and
sitting with holes in your jeans.
I can't stand people like that, mate. yeah. I would never be someone like that. Yeah.
I would if I could, but I can't. So I won't.
That's right. Did you have long hair at one point?
No. I had sort of mushroom hair. I was like a mushroom cloud. So my hair grew out, got ugly. The sooner I actually started going bald, the happier I got.
Yeah. Well,
and shaving your head became trendy and cool. So it
worked
out well.
And you don't have to do much about it, mate. I've got to comb this bad boy every day. Me and my missus kind of stand there doing the same thing. There's no difference between the man and the female in this relationship.
I tell you, mate, enjoy it while you can.
Yeah.
It's a good thing. I know it sounds like it's a hardship, but it's a pretty good hardship.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing, interestingly, on that, I've kind of find it strange that, I was a chef de mission for the Commonwealth Games team for the last 3, and it was a very successful team on the Gold Coast last year. And we're trying to measure why, and we don't kind of know why, but there's something, and it sort of goes back to a little bit of, I think because I was good at running and I followed it through and I worked hard and I love what I do, I've seemed to be able to continue, and it gets to a stage where, again, I'm not making the choices. I made the choices at an earlier stage and I evolved as a person, and by those choices early on and taking those opportunities, I'm now getting these opportunities at the top end. But I don't know why, and I can't put my finger on it, but I pinch myself thinking, why would people want me on this committee or doing this job? But there is a reason.
Yep.
So they've obviously recognised something, or my journey and my choices have allowed me, put me in that space. Now that's where I often have people say, oh, you're lucky, like you were born good, you were born to run, and now you're lucky, you live in a beautiful house, you all seem to be happy, you get these, how come you're on a part of this? Well, the reason I'm lucky at the top end was because I worked really hard. So, you say the harder I worked, the luckier I got. But everyone likes to see the lucky and the good bit. They don't understand the journey you've come on to put yourself. And things happen to me now that I don't choose to make happen, but they happen for some reason. Now you can say that's lucky, or you can say that's fate. And I've somehow formed a path to allow that to happen.
Absolutely.
Now, how good is that in life when you work really hard and you forge a path that decisions unfold without you even having to make them?
Oh yeah, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. But again, it comes down to the thing of, I can guarantee you just by knowing who you are now, that if none of that stuff at the top had happened, you wouldn't care.
I'd be happy anyway.
You would, because you decided to run because it was an intrinsic value of yours. You just enjoyed to run. And then, you can say like you worked very hard, and you did, of course, but you wouldn't have not worked hard because you just enjoyed doing it, And I think I really do believe that we get lost in this day and age, because I still struggle with it, the idea of like, if I could, it's expedience. If I do this, then this will happen.
Yeah.
If I run and train my ass off, one day I'll go to the Olympics.
Yeah.
But Steve's sitting here saying, no, run just because you enjoy running.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what you enjoy, then perhaps you need to spend a bit more time with yourself just to figure, or maybe try some new things.
Yeah.
Like go and take a French class.
Yeah.
It's like maybe you really want to be a connoisseur of French cuisine or whatever it is. Like whatever it is, that's the brilliant thing about having all these opportunities, is that you really do. Siobhan and I lived in Bali for 2 months, and this is when I was really trying to understand a lot of the reasons why people are happy and people are unhappy. And every objective material measure of happiness in the Western world now is going up. And then similarly, anxiety and depression have been on the rise kind of since that has been. It's very bizarre,
It's a parallel universe, you can be sure.
Yeah, it's so strange, mate. But, you meet these people that have nothing in Bali, and they're the happiest people that I've ever seen, far happier than people that live in Melbourne, and you wonder why. And I think it has a lot to do with the lack of opportunity. Paradoxically, meaning that because they can only work in this laundromat for the rest of their life, they're going to do a brilliant job at it.
Yeah.
They're going to make it their own, But because we have so much opportunity, that breeds a lot of indecisiveness. And then there's a lot to say about happiness and actually accomplishing tasks and being good at things.
Yeah.
And because we have so much opportunity, again, the indecisiveness makes it that we don't really do a lot.
Yeah.
So we just kind of sit around.
Yeah.
And
that's that reactive stuff we were talking about before, whether, which choice should I make? Which is the right choice? That's where I want to get. So how am I going to make that happen? But if you just could, if you just do what you're doing and you don't worry about the sort of untouchables, the outcome. I've never thought about before. You've made me contemplate how my journey from being a kid in Ballarat with, didn't even know he could run, to going to being one of the best marathon runners or going to the Olympics. I now understand that, because I thought I was stepping it all out, and I was very organised, and the next step was the next step. But really, it was just, I just loved running.
Yeah.
And by keeping on running, people offered me team. It wasn't I kind of didn't change at all.
Yeah,
there was other people, the doors were opening, but I was still in the same room.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
It sounds like.
I've never thought of it in that. I can't quite conceptualise, but I know exactly what you're getting at, and that's been really a breath of fresh air for me.
Wow.
To be honest, Tom.
Yeah.
I've never really. I always thought I was in control, and I progressed, and I had to work really hard, and I got to the next benchmark, and I ticked that off, and then I went to this, and I went to that, and but what sort of happened is, by just loving and enjoying what I was doing, other people then opened the doors for me, and before I knew it, I was at the Olympic Games, and it wasn't so much that I had to make decisions. All I had to do was just keep doing what I did, and it evolved and happened.
Well, I mean, and that comes to the very cliche but very powerful idea in life, is just to be yourself.
Yeah.
And if you really, the more superficial layers that you break away to find, who you are, and by being who you are, you'll emulate what it is that you love to do. You will live. You'll be very happy. And because you couldn't think of. I mean, it just sounds like you found your lane at a young age, and it didn't matter where you were, because you started off not being the best runner, but it didn't matter because you'd found your lane, and eventually all the other people that were better runners than you perhaps moved into their own lanes, which bred a path for you, and then obviously because you were good at it, you kept doing it, and you became who you were always meant to be.
Yeah. And they did too.
Yes.
Isn't it
That's
interesting?
right.
Because they all want to be in my lane, but they found their own lane.
That's right.
So we're all, and it's interesting that, if you stay in your lane, it's fine. It's when we want to
part
jump
of the plan
lanes.
as well, what I'm talking
Is it
about.
right? Yeah. So it's jumping lanes, because we all think that we want to be in someone else's lane. But if you just keep going in your lane, then you get a long way, because there's no obstacles in your lane.
That's so true.
Obstacles in others.
That's so true. That's a brilliant point.
It's good analogies. We're working well as a team.
We're doing very well here, mate. Yeah, should have been a runner.
Talking shit or not, but anyway, we're having a good
We're
time.
making sense. Yeah, I get it. Yeah,
we believe it.
Yeah. So how do you kind of use all this to? Because you have 3 kids.
4
kids.
Yep.
Awesome.
I used to say, I had 4 kids and my wife had 5 kids.
Yeah.
Because I was pretty challenging. But then because of split families and all that, so everyone kind of go, so your wife was married before and had another kid. No, it's not that complicated.
It's just me.
So
I'm immature.
Yeah, I don't use that joke anymore.
Yeah.
We have 4 kids.
Yeah. Do you use a lot of that mentality that you gain from having a successful career, and the way you kind of how you want your children to grow up? And
not really. That's interesting. That doesn't cross over. No, Tanya's a far better parent than I am. That's a fact. So because I come and go, and she's the rock of our family. There's no doubt about that. So and it's interesting. I don't bring a lot of. Maybe I live it, so our kids pick it up, and they probably gain some of that. Those traits, either being born with them or developing them, just being around us. But I don't force it on our kids. So, I could have a deep and meaningful meeting and then come home and be just dad. So
that's good.
Yeah, I don't know if that's good, or I don't know if I've disappointed my kids in not passing that stuff on, or whether, we've always been there for our kids. So, we don't shy away from the responsibility. It's hard being a parent. It's bloody hard. Shit, it's the hardest job out of any job that anyone. No one will convince me that there's a harder job than being a parent, and we're all learning it. And they don't write the book on parenting. You just got it, and you can take advice, or we can give advice, but you have to live it as well.
Right.
So it's a bit like running a marathon. Until you run one, you don't really understand. So parenting is an evolving game, and I think it's harder probably now than than it may have ever been. I mean, not financially, but just with societal things that are happening. So you want to be there for your kids. You want them to get their own identity. So I think we're always there if we're needed, but you also don't want to be. I feel like we may have been a bit we model coddied our
I
kids
see,
a bit
yeah.
too much. So
Yeah.
you know, private schools, everything they want. But then people tell me, well, if you can give them those opportunities, then why wouldn't you? So you know, we're going okay. So should we then, you know, live in a flat and, you know, off $10 a week? No.
Yeah.
Well, if we've got the opportunity to, so you give, but then there's a line on being too good and just allowing them to just make sure they understand that there's certain boundaries and things they need to do, and so that's the balance.
Yeah, and you know, I think it comes back to the first thing we were talking about, the busyness. I mean, by all measures, you could not be better suited to say, I'm busy. You're 4 kids, you're doing all these other things, but I mean, you want to do it, you know.
Yeah.
Which is really good. I'm thinking, you know, we might have kids in a couple of years and all that sort of stuff, but it seems to be like it's one of those things where you can only parents know how to be parents, and they know that they're parents because they have no idea what they're doing. But you kind of learn as you go.
You do, and it's good that you don't know. And
Yeah.
that's why I don't reckon. I mean, there's parenting advice, but no one will parent your kids better than you. So what you need to do is you need to take the advice on, but you need to then adapt to your personality, to your kids, and to your situation. So it's an interesting, because if you were to come here and we were to say, we've got parenting down, we know it, just sit down and listen to us.
Have a mate, there you go.
That's right. Here's the recipe.
Yeah.
That no one can be in. It wouldn't be as much fun, because you know you would know.
True, very true.
So it's kind of, I think it's a bit open ended, but it's exciting, and it's a bit like that. You know, your anxiety, boredom. You will never be bored as a parent. You will be anxious, so it's controlling the anxiety to make it as much of positive. So there are ups and downs. There are ups and downs in a marathon. There are ups and downs in life. There are ups and downs in parenting. But you're hoping that you navigate the ups and downs as a team. It's a team effort, really.
Definitely. Yeah, that's
And the other thing I think, and I'm saying this at the moment, I think it was, I don't want to steal it from someone, Ron Brassey or Kevin Sheedy said, if it is to be, it's up to me. You know,
Nice.
that great saying. And I think now the world is extraordinarily full of resources, but you need to grab the resources. The resources are only available. I do a lot of speaking, and you know, I come into places where people bring me in because I'm a name. I say exactly the same thing as what you say, Tom, but because it comes from me, they listen. But I always say, well, you've got the greatest resource there. I'm coming and going. If I leave and never come back, it's not going to change my life. But Tom right here is here all the time. Why aren't you using him as a resource? He's the greatest resource you got. Well, your parents are your greatest resource, but they can't do it for you, because we're a different generation. Our kids laugh at half of the stuff, the dad jokes and the stuff we do. So they are a different generation, but we are such a good resource that by learning from us, taking our, and then developing it in their own way, then that's how the world evolves. That's how we've got to the stage we've got now. So don't deny it. Accept it. What is it? Fear. Face your fear, and deal with it. Or you don't block it out. And it's a bit like technology. I'm not great on technology, but I understand it's here. Now I'm going to embrace it and use it to suit the situation that I need it for, and no point in just blocking it out and denying it, because it's reality, and this new generation's onto it. So for having that relationship with your kids, you need to be aware of it. So you go with it. So again, it's a resource that can be used either positively or negatively, but it's going to be used.
It's going to be there.
So you can't deny it. So it's on the line. So
totally.
Now you're going to have to exist with it on the line. So you can't deny. We could say, okay, if the world got blown up and we started again, we'd never introduce technology. That's not going to happen. So let's embrace it and now move on.
Yeah, well, I mean, because we always, the way this machine works, and it's got us to 2019, which is your point essentially, is that we're problem solvers. We figure things out, and we make things more convenient for ourselves so that we can live happier lives. And we've got to this stage now where we especially in the West, we can live. We're very, very opportunistic. We have this privileged lifestyle because we've done all the hard work, but there's still more work to be done.
Yeah.
But I was interested.
But is there a breadth now in that though that you worry about? So the breadth between the haves and the have-nots.
Yep.
So I'm sure we all tried to evolve, so we all had greater opportunity.
Yep.
Now, it would slightly worry me if some people go, actually, I'm worse off than I reckon society was 50 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Now, have we brought everyone along on the journey, or have we've evolved so quickly that the gaps widened?
Definitely, yeah. I would agree with that. I think there's still, this is what I mean. Like, I still think there's a lot more work to be done. Okay. But I think also as well, that work has to come from within yourself first. You have to find your lane. You have to figure out how you can give back by giving to yourself. You know, that very spiritual analogy that once your cup is overflowing with love and water, when it's too full with coffee, then you can give coffee to other people. Yeah. Exactly. So I think that there is work to be done. But you were saying something before, like when you go and talk and you give your speeches and stuff. Yeah. I was interested in what you see as like the most frequent question. Like, do people often ask you, is it just about your time running, or is it more life advice as well?
It's become life advice.
Yeah.
It used to be running.
Mm-hmm.
It's now life advice because I'm so removed from my actual career and yet I've still I seem to be comfortable within my own skin, even though my identity is so fixed or fixated on when I was a great athlete.
Yeah.
So they probably find a little bit. The most question I get is, are you still running now, or what are you doing now? Because they see me as, and I've been retired. Someone did remind me, wisely or not, that I've been retired longer than I was an international athlete.
There you go.
15 years, and I'm about 18 years retired. So whilst I became known for my running success, I've now somehow forged another personality that's intriguing to people who they see that there's a font of knowledge that they want me to share.
Yeah, definitely.
And so, but I don't know how that journey happened. So I don't even know.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why
I've come along that. Yeah, well, you're here.
That's right.
Know me, and you kind of know me as you grew up when I was a kid, and you say, oh wow, I used to watch you on telly, and and then so why don't you just spend an hour talking to me about, okay, at this point in the race, no one's worried about that anymore.
Yeah.
So somehow they've seen me evolve into a different person who use their success, but rather than be identified and known, pigeonholed for their success to be this specific, can't get that word out, specific ability of being one of the best marathon runners in the world. They're all now going, actually, we remember you for that, but you seem to have now been able to broaden out your reach, that you are valuable in another way.
Definitely. And I reached out to you initially because like what you said, like I'd seen you when I was young, and I'm like, that'd be a fantastic conversation about mental toughness and learning about what it took, to get to those positions. But within 10 minutes of us talking, you just became a good bloke that I wanted to chat with, and then we started talking about, because I'm very interested in the way people apply what they're good at to various other aspects of life, and we dived into that beautifully here in this show, where we were talking about intrinsic values and how you became who you're always meant to be, that sort of stuff. And that's kind of what keeps me ticking, and I probably believe one of the reasons why you'd be so in demand for these talks as well, because you emulate that sort of that way to live life, where it's just, this is what I was good at, sure, but based on who I was being then, I've been able to translate that. And I mean, you can give practical life advice. Sure, you're not a psychologist or whatever, but it doesn't matter. Like you've found how to live life. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, I think interestingly, that's only a specific part of my life, and I had all these other things, but I wasn't, and it would have been easy for me to forget about all those other parts of my life and just be tattooed, famous marathon runner,
Yeah.
and walk around for the rest of my life being famous marathon runner.
Yeah.
But I've almost gone back to normality. So I've kind of said, all right, that was fine. I could, but I'm actually choosing to just have that sit there and to evolve and go back to being a normal person and try and evolve other aspects of my personality.
Yeah.
And people have caught on to that. I think they actually, you were a really good runner. We used to think you were a superstar who were untouchable. And then we thought once you retired, you'd go back to being a boring, normal person. But what's actually happened?
It's brutal, mate.
Yeah, it's brutal being normal.
Yeah.
But they've actually gone, no, actually, we thought you were just going to be this hack runner who just, lived in the past. But we've actually seen, there's other... And I think that starts making them then think about, okay, how can I apply this? Because I don't want to be identified for just this one aspect.
No way.
Hey, I've got so many things to offer here, so why can't I be, not be like Steve, but he somehow evolved into letting us know that whilst he was good at one thing, he's actually a normal person who's worked hard in other aspects of his life and he's achieving and getting the best out of himself. So what are the lessons that we can glean off him to do that? And that's why I prefer sharing conversations because I'm still evolving myself. So
course,
I've got a lot to learn. So I'm got so much other, things I want to do and achieve and learn about myself. So by having conversations, I pick that up. And you do it by writing, you do it by reading, you do it by your podcast. So different aspects allow you to also be evolving.
Exactly. Yeah, that's actually my vision board that's come up there. That's a couple of things.
Does that mean we've spoken too long?
No.
Time's up.
Yeah, we're on. What are we on now? Hour and 5. We've done well.
God.
Yeah, no, that's a couple of things.
I thought that was a hint. I'm thinking, oh yeah, right.
Steve,
Good
you're
idea.
done. Yeah.
Your time is up.
It's up.
It's like when I do some speaking gigs and they have the clock down the bottom.
Yeah.
I get
You
really
the red light.
intimidated by the clock. I'm thinking, no, I'm about to
I've
hit
just
my best
started.
story.
Yeah, exactly. Hi, time's up. What?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what are some of the other things then that you don't often get to talk about, but you'd love to talk about a bit more? And
I think what I find really interesting is running's been able to keep me young. So I run with younger people, but what I find really interesting is that I can be talking to a billionaire one day and a tradie the next day, or a family member or something, and they're different. There's such different levels of society, and we all say, wow, it must be fantastic to talk to Bill Clinton, and I kind of go, well, no, actually everybody's interesting to talk to. And I love the banter. And I always say if we could do a podcast on our Sunday morning runs, it'd be a number one bestseller. We'd all be assassinated.
Yeah,
it'd be a
that's
number
right.
one bestseller. So the life stories that you get by putting yourself in uncomfortable situations is actually really good. It's not, I'm a shy, introverted guy, and I get asked to speak at lots of things, and I'll Tanya knows when I've got some speaking gig coming up, because I'll get moody, I'll go quiet, because I want to do the best I possibly can. I don't want to let people down, but I'm out of my comfort zone, so I have to lift. I have to get, it's like running a marathon again. I have to bring out something not superhuman, but I have to really try really difficult. And then you deliver that speech, and people go, oh, that was okay, or they go, that was great. So it's a bit like running a marathon. You get a bit of feedback. It can be positive, negative, and then once it's done, you relax and you move on to the next one. But at the time, that seems a really important thing.
Yep.
So, I think you got to put yourself outside your comfort zone a little bit. But I also like being in an environment where I don't feel compromised. So if I run with my running mates, or I have a conversation with you now, it's not. I'm not being judged. I'm not being scored. So I just like chatting, and I'm often in a position where I can be, and it's unmeasured. So it's not like it's not a job interview. It's not. I'm not gonna. It's not a race. So what we're doing now is I really enjoy, because it's just two blokes chewing the fat. And it's good that you can do that. So whilst I'm sometimes in a position to do that, and sometimes it leads, I get a bit upset with myself, because I often come out of these conversations, or I come out of some speaking gig, and I've lectured or talked down to people, and I kind of go, shit, I was hard on that, and I didn't mean to go that way, but unfortunately that's just what you get. And if I learn from it, I go, well, next time I'll be a bit I'll send that message then, and it's a learning experience for me. But just the sharing of information on a untimed, unpaid, unbiased situations I really enjoy that.
Oh, yeah, so do I. So it's so good to be able to have conversations like this with people, you know. And
the other thing, see, I don't think, interestingly, I think it's just, I have to kind of, I like that people are watching and listening, but I try not to think they are, because I don't
definitely
want to be thinking that either I'm lecturing or, geez, if I don't, God, people are going to turn off if I don't give them a pearl of wisdom right now. I don't want to be in that situation, because there are no pearls of wisdom. It's just a journey. So there is no doubt that what we've spoken about today is been very valuable, but it's only valuable if you take it on board and you want it to be valuable. So you kind of, there'll be people out there going, shit, I heard Mona and Tom talking the other day, and geez, they talk some shit, and they, which is true, but they're judging us. They're not. I'm not here to be judged. I'm here to have a conversation, and I would like to think that people won't judge what we say. It's not a competition. It's an information sharing situation. So they go, actually, there was a lot of stuff in there that was rubbish. They were rambling, but there was a couple of good things in there. Then that I appreciate, because they know that we are making an effort. We're talking, but also they're then engaged in the discussion. So they're not judges with scorecards holding up 8. When we're not on the worm, we're not doing the worm. We're the worm. What they are is they're taking this conversation in its entirety. They're embedded in it, and they're seeing what applies to their situation. And I would hope if we had some feedback, they'd go, actually, I disagree with you. I'd like you to debate you on this bit, or I'd like you to tease this thing out a bit more. That, to me, is what we're having here, is a good intellectual conversation that hopefully we have analysed some things that happen in our life and we're too busy to stop and think about, so we get to do that, but we also share that with other people.
And it comes back to that intrinsic value thing that we were talking about before, because the biggest reason why I do podcasting basically is that so one day my grandchildren and their grandchildren can see, oh, that's what Tom was like when he was young. And I did a podcast with Dad like 2 months ago, because I learned so much off my dad. He's a brilliant writer, and he had a tough time with mental health when he was similar age. Not time now, I'm in a good place now, but a couple of years back. So it was just great to do a podcast with him, so that my children and their children can be like, this is what my great granddad was like, back. So it's a selfish thing for me to do. I mean, I truly hope that I'm giving some feedback and some value to people, especially with the guests that I get on the show. But it's like I want to sit down and talk with Steve. I want to learn more about him, So it's more about me than anything.
Yeah. But I'm sure you would, if you did that, you wouldn't record it.
Well, that's a good point too. Okay. Yeah, I'm checkmate.
So you are, No,
I mean, I do hope I'm giving. Yeah.
And even with the conversation with your father and your grandfather, that generational stuff.
Of course.
That's generational for life. That's just not generation. It's not one dimensional. It's broader than that. So it's valuable for everybody. So again, you're on the continuum. I've become, we are just on the continuum. We're at a point in that continuum, and we can say that, our life's more important than anybody else, but we are just on the continuum. And so which point are you at? Where are we at? Are we widening the continuum? And like I say, are we a blip on it? Or, I think that's kind of, we hope we're doing a service that maybe gives more value to this point in the timeline.
A lot of people have a tough time dealing with that, because you can see how nihilism and insignificance would kind of grow from that perspective on life, where it's like, oh God, we're just on this continuum, like, what's the point, all that sort of stuff.
Okay.
What would you say to someone who's kind of seeing that in that kind of frame?
Yeah, well, what you do then is you get the microscope and you go in on that microcosm, and you delve into what was the significant activities in that time. So you think about what's happening right now. So remember the 2000 bug, the millennial bug that was going to happen.
Y2K was it?
Y2K, all that sort of stuff. So So there'll probably be those moments. Well, you can stop and you can say that's a point in time, but then you say, well, why did we get to that? Did the world end because of it? No. Okay, so the lessons that so what I would do is I'd go to our point on the continuum, and everybody can do this. Then you blow up that bit and you say, okay, where's the bit that's appropriate to me? Now, I've got a very good situation where, so you feel meaningless and pointless, and you kind of go, well, I'm on the continuum, and it's just a production line, and what I do or what I don't do doesn't matter. I ran the Berlin Marathon in 1990. It was the year of the reunification of Germany. So the Cold War, we even just to back up a little bit, we were there. We went over there a couple of weeks before. We stayed in West Germany, as it was, or West Berlin, and got there pretty late. We'd come from England, and we my physio and I unpacked all that stuff, got into a running gear because I hadn't been for a run. It was about to get dark. So we ran. We climbed through a hole in the wall, Berlin Wall.
Oh my God.
And we went into East Berlin, and it was like it was a time warp because we'd stepped back in time because it was grey and depressing. And anyway, a week later I win the marathon, and they have we were the first event of the reunification week. So later in that week, it all became Berlin. And you look at Berlin now, one of the world's most cosmopolitan cities, and in a minor way, I played a role in that.
That's true.
I was there, and we saw that transition. So you can't say that your meaningless existence has is of no worth, because that's an example of where we were put in a time warp, in a place, and I won the race, and now Berlin Marathon's biggest marathon in the world. World records are run there. So I was there, and by my running in that event at that particular moment in time, it changed history, or history was changing, and I was involved in that piece of change in history. Now, whatever you do life, you change history in whatever you do. And it's a bit like I've never seen the movie, but where the sliding doors, a bit like sliding doors. Now, everyone has an opportunity to change. You make your own history, but you also affect history. There are two different things. So you can say you're a part of life, or you can actually change life. So what are you doing? You just, you on that continuum saying, oh, well, but you have the choice to, a bit with the conversation we were saying before, by what you do now, the consequences are going to be felt in your own life, but you're also changing the world's life. So it is sliding doors for everybody. So don't think every choice you make, or every opportunity you have, you are then affecting history in your own way, and it'll affect. And again, I tell people about, how do you solve world? You and I can't solve world peace, Tom. But what we can do is, if you're living next door to me and I know you're not home this weekend, I'll take your bin out, and you come home and your bin's clean and it's done and you're happy. Okay, now if you then down the next neighbour and the next neighbour, and if we all take each other's bins out, by the time the whole world takes all their bins out, there's no rubbish in the world. It's a better place. So we solve world
bin
World Bin Day. So that type. So I think you and I can't have a conversation with Donald Trump or China's president, but what we can do is we can have a conversation with the person next to us, and we believe that by having that conversation, that person then has an ongoing effect with the people that they come in contact with, and eventually you change the world. If you don't believe that, you wouldn't have a conversation, or you wouldn't get off the continuum. You would just stay on it because you think, well, I can't make a difference here, but everyone can make a difference in their own way, and you're far better having 3 million people trying to make a difference than one person trying to make a difference to 3 million people, because it's obviously the mass effect will be more likely to have success.
Fuck, that's awesome, man. It's really motivating.
Well, you need to bring it back to your own self. I mean,
yes.
You watch on TV and you see, what did we see, Scott Morrison and Donald Trump at the G20 last night. Now, we cannot see a direct line to that being real for me. But what I can see is that, okay, well, the ramifications of that meeting is that, we have trade restrictions on China. So when I go down to the shop this morning, I don't buy a Chinese TV. I don't know. These are things we can do. So what the key is to, what is it? Act local, think global. Think global, act local. We see that happen, and then do you relate that to your situation? Because if you don't relate that to your situation, what was the point of watching it? I mean, it's it's a bit like, do you aspire to be like me, or are you inspired by me?
Yes,
If you're
exactly.
inspired by me, I'm not happy, because I'm an untouchable. Whereas if you're aspired by some of the conversation we have, and similarly me to you, then I think there's been a benefit in, because we see that there's development in ourselves by the conversation that we've had, and that will play out in your actions. Now, the actions that Donald Trump and the Chinese president make will affect the world, but so will the actions that you and I make.
Very true. Yep.
Okay, so bring it back to your own situation. Tell me what you are going to do, the deliverables on making this day a better day than it was yesterday.
Yeah, you can integrate Steve's wisdom that he's learned through practical application in his own life to your current situation. I guess.
Well, if you can't, I've wasted my time.
That's right. Yeah,
so
exactly.
I know my situation, but I'm trying to put some stuff into practical situations that you can apply to your situation.
Yeah. I mean, my biggest takeaway, and I think the biggest takeaway from the podcast, is to really, really resonate with intrinsic values. For me anyway, it's just that idea of like, what do you do just because you love doing it? And that's a really good measurement of happiness. Yeah. Which is brilliant. Steve,
sorry, just one other thing on just hit me. So you write a book.
Yeah.
You become the number one seller of a self-help book.
Yeah.
Once you release that book, you go on the book tour. Do lots of people come and see you?
Yes, I think
they do. More people will come.
Yes.
But yet they've got the book. So there's obviously more than just the words in the book. Otherwise, they wouldn't come and see you, because all the answers are there. But they don't. The answers aren't there. The resources there, but the resource is really you. So they need to come to you, and you need to then apply it to their situation. So you need to give them the connection as well as signing the book. You then have a conversation to say, well, on page 81, I read that you did this time, or you suggested this. How do you think that applies to my life? And that's the step that people aren't getting. That's the jump that's too far. So they're reading the book and they're going, shit, Tom's a legend. But if they're not, you shouldn't be happy with that. What they should be going is, shit, that's actually relevant to my life. So when I do this, when I go and see Tom, I'm going to ask him about that.
Yeah.
That is really good reinforcement, because it's your words then being applied to their situation, so they can action that.
Yes, that makes perfect sense. Exactly. And I
know you're wrapping up. So
No. I was just going to say that's one of the reasons I write, is to try to figure things out, because I'm a external communicator. So like when Siobhan's an internal communicator, so she'll only say something once she's really thought about it. It's like, this is actually what I mean. But I just blabber to try to figure something out. It's probably why I like writing. I try to figure things out all the time. And the reason why I wrote that first book was so I could figure myself out.
Yeah.
So that application in and of itself, but
and you can't help someone else until you've helped yourself. So
exactly.
That's that process you're going through.
Exactly. And I wanted to be a better friend, I had issues with my dad that I wanted. It was just like, look, I'm a big part to play in this. A lot of this resentment, this frustration towards you. I wanted to get a girlfriend. I wanted all these things. I was like, well, who's to say that you deserve all these things? It's like,
you got to earn them.
You got to earn them. You got to be a good person to be in a relationship. You got to be a good person to get along with your dad. So I just kind of recognised that I needed to look in the mirror a little bit, But fuck, Steve, we could talk for hours. I love it. We'll get another coffee one day. Do it.
Yeah.
Have you got any talks?
Part two.
Exactly. Have you got talks coming up?
Yeah, a few. A couple of running ones, and I have good variety in my life, but for me, and I'm a pretty organised person, so it's really. And one thing I do say, and this conversation's a good example of it, that I can be in the moment 100%. So I quite like my capacity to be able to compartmentalise, and I'm not thinking of the better things that are happening out there. I'm happy. This is as good as it gets for me right now, and I'm happy being in this situation. So, I'm quite good at being able to do that. But, I tend to, be efficient in getting things done. So I move on to the next thing, give it 100%, and then learn from that and go on. So I've got a few runs, few talks and that in the next few months. It makes life exciting. So from all levels, from running groups to Sport Australia and making a difference, hopefully, to people I come in contact with, Tom.
Yeah.
Been a pleasure, mate. Enjoyed it. Thanks a
Mate,
lot
I
for the
loved
chat.
it. We'll have to do it again.
Yeah.
6 months, a year's time, we'll see if we can
Check
dive
in.
into each
That's
other's
right.
minds again and
Yeah.
be like, oh, the reason you did this is because of this.
Yeah.
You know?
See where we've gone. See how we've evolved.
Yeah, definitely. All right, cool.
Great.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Thanks, Steve.
See ya.
Hello, team. If you did so happen to enjoy this YouTube video, you can hit that subscribe button. You can mash that red button, pound it, bang it, hit it, do whatever you need to do, and I will see you shortly.